Welcome everyone to this morning's call. Pretty excited about today's presentation. We're going to be talking about transforming your professional services business in 2022. Obviously, for some of us, we've been through some interesting times over the past couple of years, with lockdowns and with all sorts of changes in the economy. One of the things that's going to happen, and as Australia starts to come out of lockdown, we're going to get busy towards the end of the year. And so I'm encouraging people to start thinking of 2022 now. Because as we come out of lockdown, as we start moving towards the end of the year, you're going to get busy and you're going to be sort of thinking about what do I need to do to recoup or recover from the things that have been happening. So if we're in professional services, can I get a show of hands for those who are in the professional services field? Just a quick show of hands. Okay, got a good number. Awesome. Let's talk about what we're going to cover today. So a bit about myself. For those who I haven't met before, my name is David Guest. I run a business called Outcomes Business Group. We established in 2001. So this is our 20th anniversary this year, which is not an exciting way to spend your anniversary. But we're a business coaching firm and we have been for a long time, basically 20 years. But our vision or our mission in life is to reinvigorate the business dream. And what we talk about is, people go into business for all the right reasons. If I ask the question, and I might actually do this into the chat box, in one word, why did you go into business? For those who are business owners. The normal answers that I do get is freedom, lifestyle choices, skill sharing. The other one I get is I didn't get a choice. I basically got thrown in the deep end to help people, right? So the two main reasons that I hear is I wanted to have a better lifestyle or I wanted to actually make more money. Now, a quick show of hands for those people who've been in business over 5 years on this call. Almost everyone, awesome. So what's the truth? The truth is that if you run a business, you're probably going to work harder than you ever did before, and you'll probably be willing to accept less money than sometimes is legal. Right. And so the question is, why does this happen to people? They get sort of derailed from their business dream, where they started. And this is what intrigued me and why we started Outcomes Business Group, because we realized that running a business is not just about being busy. It's not a busyness, it's a business, and it's about making sure that you achieve your objectives. So we're going to be talking a bit about 3 different elements today about how you can transform your professional services business in 2022. But the first sort of distinction I want to make is, which is your business? Now, most of the people I've spoken to over the years, they come to me and they tell me how busy they are. Their business is really, it occupies every waking hour of their lives. Now, all they think about is their business, and they're constantly thinking about, how do I serve my clients better? How do I deliver my service better? How do I become more efficient? And normally their admin is something that is a thing they have to do. So they try to minimize that. They usually do that after hours, or they sort of, do it in sort of the middle of the night. And marketing and sales is very small for them. And the reason that marketing and sales is very small is they say, no, we don't need to market. We get most of our business through word of mouth. Now, who's guilty of getting most of their business through word of mouth? Can I get a show of hands? Yep. Statistically, 63% of people get most of their business from word of mouth, and they love it. And word of mouth is amazing because it usually means you have a high conversion rate. You don't have to sell very hard because people have been referred to you. But the real reason that most people don't market is this. They are in the center of the universe of their business. And if they're already busy and we start talking about growing that business, that person says, well, if I double my business, I don't know if I can double 70 hours a week because I'm in the center of the universe. So growing my business through marketing doesn't make sense. So I'll settle for word of mouth because I can control that. So what we try and do is we try and transform how people think. And the first thing we do is we say, look, operations, you need to deliver your service, right? You need to have a business that delivers its service. Admin should be about the same level of effort, but it probably shouldn't be you. And sales and marketing should be to the same level of effort as operations. You should spend as much time and effort and money on getting clients in the door as you do in service delivery. Now, here's the big distinction. This person called you, the business owner, should be on the outside of all of this, right? I don't mean on the outside as in somewhere else. I mean on the outside as in not doing the work of the business. So literally becoming the architect, the designer, the decision maker, the CEO of the organization. Now, for most small businesses, this is a pipe dream, right? Because they'd love to be able to do this, but they can't afford to do this. But to me, if you're not spending at least 4 hours of every single week working on your business, and I mean not doing sales, not doing marketing, literally designing and strategizing where you're going to go, you end up getting caught on the treadmill. So today we're going to be talking about some of the strategies to transform your professional services business. And part of that's going to include getting you off that treadmill. So let's talk about the three elements that we are going to explore today. And the very first thing that I want to touch on is transforming your professional services business. And one of the main things that we need to learn to do is to do this. Now, when I talk about attract, I'm talking about marketing. And for those people who say we don't need to market because we get most of our business from word of mouth, well, first of all, hats off to you because you're doing a great job to get referrals. But for me, referrals is not something I can turn the volume control up and down on. So we really need to think about how do we use marketing to grow our business? And there's two reasons that we market in our business, right? The first one is to generate new business, which is the obvious answer, right? To get more leads, to get more clients. The second reason that we market our business is to eliminate price competition, to make sure that we're not competing on what the standard price in the marketplace is, to make sure that we're actually growing our business and we're differentiating ourselves from everyone else so that we can actually charge more. So if you're in a price competitive market, or if you feel that you're not getting enough new clients, then attraction is a key element that we're going to be talking a bit about today. The second thing we want to talk about is your team. Now, wise one man once said to me that the most valuable lesson that you will learn as a business owner is to find and keep good people. And anyone who's experiencing this right now is getting good people right now is quite difficult. Who's in the market? Who's recruiting right now in their business? Can I get a quick show of hands? Only a few people on this call. To me, this idea of building my business by becoming better at what I do is one-sided. I'm going to recommend some books as we go through today as well. And the first book that I'm going to suggest you all buy, don't question whether you should buy, just buy it. It's a book called Who, Not How. Who, Not How. And it was written by a guy by the name of Dan Sullivan. And I can see some people grinning because I've already suggested this a couple of times. And what he teaches is very fundamental. And he says, if you grow your business by learning how to do everything, you are destined to do it yourself. If you grow your business by finding the right people to do those things, you are leveraging yourself. So by finding the right people, you can scale your business. By learning to do it yourself, you're basically confining your ability to grow. So we're going to talk about people. And then the last thing we're going to be talking about today is systems, and most specifically IT systems. Because I think one thing that everyone is aware of is we're using technology more now than we ever did before. The last 2 years, we've seen advancements in technology where we've probably accelerated 10 to 20 years in the use of technology. And there's a future to where this is all going. And I think it's important as a professional services business to understand that even after the COVID event, there's going to be this necessity for people to be utilizing technology, not instead of face-to-face, but as well as face-to-face. So we're going to be talking about how that looks and how that's going to impact your business in the future. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to introduce our first presenter for today. The first thing we're going to be talking about is the whole idea of marketing and attracting people into your business. And the topic that Andrew is going to be talking about is the 3 questions to ask to attract high-value customers. And I think one of the things we forget to do in our marketing is to remember that we should be focusing on high-value, high-margin work, right? Because we can get busy getting competitive. And getting busy being competitive is not going to serve you well as you grow your business. Getting busy working with high-profit clients is the way that we're going to do that. So I'd like to hand over to Andrew Marmont. Let's give him a nice warm welcome and let's get him on the call.
Thank you, David, and great to see everyone today. Thanks so much for coming along. So as David said, today I'd like to focus on 3 questions that you must ask to attract high-value clients. But just to start with, what I'd love is if you could go into the chat box and just type in what industry that you're in. So it'd be good to see what kind of industry people are on today. So a little bit about me. So I run a business called Concurve Content Marketing, and we've been running for about 3.5 years now. And our vision is really to help visionary leaders share their knowledge so they can influence the world. And my background is sort of broad from a talent attraction as a journalist, so in communications and now in marketing and broader marketing communications. And what I realized is that throughout that journey, being able to attract the right people, so the right clients, it all starts with how you communicate and how you position yourself. So I'd like to share some of these learnings today with you. So first of all, what's the problem that we're trying to solve when we're trying to attract these high value clients? And I think when you're talking about professional services companies, what I've learned is that the major challenge that a lot of people have is actually attracting not just any clients, but those clients that you love to work with. And I'm sure we can all we all know those clients, the ones that treat us well, who value our expertise, who are collaborative, who work with us, and that's a great feeling. But if we're not doing the work to really differentiate why we're different, and more specifically the problems that we're solving for these ideal clients, then you're going to get a couple of things. First of all, these prospective clients, they're going to think that you look the same as the other guy, right? Because quite often, and again in professional services, I see it all the time, is that when you're talking about how you communicate your value, you really talk about the same things as everyone else. It might be service, it might be people, it might be awards, things like that. But really, what you need to do is actually understand what makes you different and what are the problems that you can solve, and therefore you become more valuable. So the second challenge that we have when we're trying to attract these ideal high value clients is that if we don't do that work at the front, we don't actually talk about why we're different, we're going to get a poor match. We're going to get the clients or the prospective clients that we attract are not going to be the right fit. They're not going to be the ones that we want to work with. And again, that's really important because we're wasting time and effort if we're not actually getting the right sort of people in the door. So what's the opportunity here? To me, it's pretty clear. If we can, on that journey to attracting high value clients, the opportunity is to actually appeal on value, and that's where the game really changes. We talk about things like speaking your customer's language. So what that means is that we're able to actually move ourselves in that conversation from someone that's just simply a service provider to someone that actually helps us move forward in our lives and actually overcomes the major sort of problems. And we'll go through a little bit of what that looks like in a sec. So if you think about appealing on value, means they're the right fit and they actually value what you have to offer because you're actually solving their problems. And a great example of this is my wife and I recently joined up with a company called Verve Super. Now, you might have heard of them before. So they're obviously a superannuation company. They're a service provider, but what they've decided is they've got a really niche market. For them, it's females who are 35 to 50, and there's specific problems that they feel like they have from a knowledge point of view. So what they do is they have great webinars to their members, and they talk about sort of generally things like cash flow, how to get involved in the share market, how to invest, the different types of models. And what that's then done is that's actually elevated their brand and their value from being just a service provider to a company who actually provides great services that are specific to overcoming these sort of challenges. So we talked about the three key questions that we need to ask ourselves to attract high value customers. So the first one that I'd like you to consider today is, what does your business stand for? So what do I mean by this? Well, essentially, you want to work out where you want to be as a business. We talk about whether it's in 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, where do you want to end up and what do you want to stand for? So, quite often you might be asked from time to time, you might go to a networking event, you might be asked in a conversation, why should I choose you? What makes you different? So as a bit of a confidence question for you, if you could type in the chat box, what's the one thing that you feel that you do differently than anyone else? Why do you stand out? If you could type in the chat box, that'd be great to hear some of these answers. So what we're really talking about here about answering this question, what your business stands for, is we want to address the key challenges that our ideal customers face. So the way that we tend to do this, you can do this certainly within your own team, but also you can do this with customers. The first thing you need to ask yourself is, what are the major things that my ideal prospective clients struggle with? So what are the major pains, we call that? And that's some of the things that they find on a day-to-day basis they really struggle with, and it stops them from doing their job well, and it stops them from moving forwards in their lives. So the first thing is to list all the different pain points that they might have. Once you've done that, then you can address the gain. So what are the real outcomes that they want to have? I quite often like to ask, what's a stunning outcome look like in 6 months and 12 months and longer? And if you do that, again, you're appealing to, what's the real, what's the great things that they want to achieve. So if you can list those sorts of things, and that's a really good start. And then what you do, the next step is to actually understand how your products and services can reduce some of those pain points, but also help them reach those outcomes, those gains even quicker. And this is when you're starting to address that question, what your business stands for, but you're doing it in a very deliberate way, because you're actually focused on specifically overcoming the challenges. So as an example, I remember we worked with an accounting firm, and they'd been around for 20 years, long established reputation. But the problem was that there were 4 other accounting firms in the same building that they worked with. And I'm pretty sure people can identify with this now. So what they wanted to do, and what we found out is that when we asked that question, what does your business stand for? It was really around that they wanted to help family businesses, because for them, family businesses had a unique challenge. If they can get some clarity on the direction, and particularly where the growth needed to be, and get everyone aligned, then they knew that would be the secret to overcoming those challenges. So that was their message. That was how they communicated from a website, from a communications point of view, and it worked really well. So just to sort of highlight that in a little more detail again, we recently worked with an aircraft service company in Perth, and so they had a very specific target market. So their ideal client was mining companies, because they had long-term contracts, and it was a great lucrative opportunity. So what they thought what their business stood for was actually, and what the customers valued was actually safety and quality. So quality aircraft and the safe service. But interesting, when we talked to the customers and we dug a little bit deeper, what they valued was different. They actually valued the flexibility and the reliability. So it was really about the can-do attitude and the ability to respond if there was any sort of potential issues. So I guess my point here is what we feel like, what we stand for, and what the customer, what this ideal client actually values can be very different. So that's why you need to really do the initial and ask yourself these sorts of questions, ask your team, but also ask your existing customers, what do you feel like we stand for? What's the value that we provide? And you might be surprised. Okay, so the next question we want you to consider, does your website work? So what do I mean by that? Well, essentially, for me, a website really has 2 main tasks. The first is to tell people very succinctly what you do, who you help, and what you provide. But the second thing is, for me, a website, if it's going to work, it needs to convert the people that land on your website, we call them users or visitors, to request for more information, to actually become a lead. And I'll test this theory now to understand if to help you answer this question. Could you please raise your hand if you've generated over 5 leads last week from your website? So put your hand up if you know you've done that. Keep your hand up if you've raised if you've generated more than 10 leads last week. All right, very good. Put your left hand up if you don't know. Fair enough. So I guess my point here is for you to understand and for you to start this idea of attracting your ideal clients, you need to work out if your website's actually doing the work for you, because we know that even if we get referrals, as David mentioned at the start, they're going to go to your website to make that assessment. And if it's not clear, if it's not actually talking about who you help and how you help and talk about those the problems that you overcome, then it's not going to help you convert. I think with professional services, to me, there's 3 reasons why websites don't work. The first one is that there's no value proposition. So we talked about the challenge that you overcome. That's not clear. You need to understand what makes all the point of difference. What's your clear value proposition? The second one is that there's no target market. There's no real understanding about who you want to service the most. Again, if we we're trying to attract everyone, we attract no one. I gave the example about that accounting firm that was a family business. So, who's your ideal client? And I suggest that you put this in your homepage. The first thing that they see, you need to make it very clear, whether it's a particular type of customer, or we talked about if it's a commercial or residential or whatever the customer is, you need to put that on straight away. And the third one is that there's little or no engagement tools. So what this means is that I find that you need to have at least 4 to 5 ways for people to put their hand up if on your website. And that can be some simple things like, having clear ways to contact. Maybe it's a phone number in the top right-hand corner. It's easy to have like pop-ups, and that might be to register for an event like today, or it might be to download something of value. And I'll touch on a couple of these examples. So really, if you can be clear about your value, what makes you different, and the pain and the challenges that you overcome, the engagement tools, and also who you help, you're going to go a long way to ensuring that your website works really well. So a quick example, a couple of examples. This is a real website, and we can see here there's there's some different ways that this particular business wants to engage. The first is a clear number. You can easily call that number here. We've got to subscribe to newsletter, and I'll have a pop-up and talk about some value about subscribing. And then we also have a request for help. So what this is really just trying to do is actually, if you've landed on a website and you're ready to buy, or you're ready to make a conversation, and that might only be 10% of people in the market, but if you want to capture them straight away, then consider putting in some really simple ways to grab interest straight away. We tested this theory ourselves around the webs, putting in some great, compelling ways to engage. We realized that some of the problems that our potential clients had was that, problems that they needed to solve, for example, is actually how do we talk about how we help customers. So we created a tool that was all about creating powerful customer stories. Another challenge that a lot of our potential clients face is that, they're not sure exactly who their ideal client was. So we put together a great tool that people can use. And so what this does is, again, it puts people's hand up just if they want some more information. And when they are ready, they can come back to you. So the third question we want to ask is, do you inspire your prospective clients? So again, what we really mean here is we know that 10% of people are ready to buy right now. We've established that. But what about the 60% of people who are not quite ready, or they're not in a position to buy right now? You want to really address some of the challenges and talk about how you overcome these for them. We gave the example about Verve Super. That's a website. That's a webinar which was really clearly articulated. So what can you do? And if we think about the idea of an email newsletter, and a lot of people on this call, I'm sure, will have email newsletters and communications, a communication rhythm that they send out. I find that if you can use that valuable space and time to actually talk about specifically the problems that they might have and just address them in each email, and you do that consistently over time, that's how we're going to inspire your prospective, these really high value clients. We did an example last week where we're just focusing on, for 1 month, we're picking a particular topic, and we're just talking about how we would solve that particular problem. For example, it was about, how to get the most out of your website. So we found that by doing that, people will put their hand up when they're ready, or they'll at least ask you for more information. So consider, if we look going down the email newsletter path, think about how you want to solve their challenges, and just simply communicate how you do that. And of course, that's where over time you'll get people to raise their hands. So if we think about newsletters as an example, there's different things you can do. But if you're new to creating communication, then MailChimp's a good solution. It's pretty straightforward. Otherwise, HubSpot and ActiveCampaign are also good, but they have CRMs. So if you want to make a start, then perhaps MailChimp's a good example. So make sure that, I guess what we're saying here is ensure that you have some really strong differentiated content for the specific target market that you're looking to solve. And a quick example about John, who I think is here on the call today. We look to inspire. John has a very specific niche. it was all about lawyers, and he's a mediator and arbitrator. And for him, it was really around, he wanted to inspire them to educate before they had disputes with their clients. So what we did was, over time, we decided to talk about some of the problems that they have and how they can actually move forward before they get to a dispute. So it was really about education. And you do that consistently over a 12-month period. And what that did was that not only allowed him to get more lucrative assignments, but he was also named as Expert Determiner of the Year for 2020. I guess what I'm saying here is, if you can educate and inspire your prospective clients in a way that actually makes sense to them, you can become more valuable. And over time, that's where you're going to start to attract more high value clients. So really, just to kind of sum that up again, the 3 questions you need to ask yourself. The first one is, what does your business stand for? Ensure you've got clear understanding about the pain that they have and how you can overcome them. The second one is, does your website work? You need to figure out, does your website actually convert leads into, convert visitors into leads? And you can do that through providing compelling ways to engage. And the final one is, do you inspire your prospective clients? So instead of sending out information that is maybe more of a benefit to you, think about how you can help your clients or educate your prospective clients and overcome these sort of key challenges. So what we have today is we've talked about 3 different ways and the attraction theory. We've got an ebook that actually goes into a little bit more detail about how you can actually attract these high value clients. So if you'd like a copy of the ebook, then type yes in the chat box, and we're more than happy to share that with you. So I've been Andrew Marmont, and I'd like to thank you for your company today, and I'll throw it over to you, David.
Thanks, Andrew. That was awesome. I actually took some notes because I realized a few things that we could tweak. But something Andrew talked about there, and I was doing a coaching call this morning, this notion of email and email communication and keeping in touch with your clients. You know, sometimes we call it spamming, but the reality is spam is literally email that is not useful to you. So when Andrew talked about solving people's problems, this takes time and thought to sit there and say, what are the problems that my clients are currently facing, and how can I fix those problems, or how can they fix those problems? Now, communicating that kind of information is considered value, not spam. And we've done this in our own business. We now send email newsletters out 3 times a week. And I was terrified when we first did it. I said, surely everyone's going to unsubscribe. But we changed the tone of our email correspondence, and it's all about solving problems. It's all about helping people. It's all about case studies. And we found that we had less unsubscribes for 3 emails a week than we did before, when we only did 1 a month. So the challenge, and I could see it on most people's faces, is, where do I find the time to do this? And this goes back to this working on the business idea, right? Because as we go into business and as we get busier and as we start to hear these ideas and say, yes, we should do that, something has to give, right? And the thing that's going to give is your availability of time. And so really thinking about, how do I get this done? You can outsource this kind of thing. You can do it yourself, right? So anyone who wants that ebook, I think it's an awesome offer from Andrew. It's just a simple thing. It's a book that explains how to do this better. It's going to take some time to read it, but I'm going to highly recommend that if you need to get in front of your clients and add some value, that's the way to do it. What we're going to do now is we're going to go into some breakout rooms, because we're going to do some networking. One of the challenges with running Zoom presentations is you feel like you're just sitting in your lounge room, which most people are, and you can be the fly on the wall. But I want you to meet some new people. So we're going to put you into groups of 6 people. And when you go into these breakout rooms, you're going to have 3 questions you need to answer. The first one is who you are. That's an easy one. The second one is what you do. And the third one is what resonated with you out of what Andrew just spoke about. So what was the thing that sort of resonated with you? And so all 6 of you have to have a turn. We're going to have about 8 minutes in those rooms.
Yep.
So everyone's got about 1 minute and a bit. Joe will let you know when we're about halfway, so we make sure that everyone gets a turn. And then we're going to come back after that for our next presentation. This is the way we do it. On the count of 3, I'm going to get everyone to take a deep breath. And on your screen, you might get a button that says join. And if you get that button, you need to click it to get into that room. Okay, so on the count of 3, deep breath. 1, 2, 3. Who got some value out of that 8 minutes? Just quick show of hands. Yeah, interesting, right? We've had people say to us that the breakouts are more valuable than the actual presentation. I thought, no, I don't want to hear that. But the reality is, like, we're humans, and we like to meet people, and we like to communicate, and we like to hear insights from other people. So learning from other people is sometimes more valuable than what the presenters have. Not today. Our presenters are way too much. But before we go into it, and one of the things that sort of sparked a thought for me was this idea of, people in business, they sort of run in this situation where they're in chaos, right? They're in chaos, and they're saying, I don't have time to do this stuff. And I think the fundamental of business growth is to get control back, right? Go from chaos to control, because it's only after we move from chaos to control that we can grow. And what Andrew was suggesting there is work. There's no two ways about it, but it's work that's going to produce either high quality clients or better relationships in the future, or new leads. Now, if we're already chaotic and we grow our business, we're just growing chaos. Okay, so we're going to be thinking about growth. Now, growth has two flywheels to it. Okay, one part of the growth flywheel is the marketing and the sales, get more people in the door. The second part of the growth flywheel is delivery, which is getting the product or the service delivered. Now, one of the most interesting things that has occurred during this last 2 years is the adaptation of working remotely. We've been sort of pushed into this world of, you need to work from home, and people go, oh my God, I can work from home. I have this flexibility, I have this freedom, and we're starting to use remote working. I have a big office here. We have room for 12 people, and there's 1 or 2 in here most of the time now. So anyone who needs space, it's here. But the point of this is, our next speaker, Derek, is an outsource expert. He works with a company called Flat Planet, and he's going to be talking about how we solve shortages of staff issues. Is anyone finding it challenging finding staff right now? Can I just have a quick show of hands? A few people nodding. Yeah. Now, here's the bad news. If it's trade services, it's going to be tough, right? We're going through a phase in our economy where inflation is going to kick in, wages are going to go up. But the other thing that's happened, and this is the exciting part, is we've now got used to remote working, so telecommuting. So when we talk about offshoring, it used to be a dirty word, right? People used to say, oh, I've had calls from telemarketers from offshore, and I know who they are straight away, and I hang up. I can't understand their accents, all sorts of things, right? But the truth of the matter is, what's happened in the last few years is our adaptation of working remotely, and also the speed at which these people offshore can adapt to how we work here has changed phenomenally. And so the value proposition of offshoring is quite different now to what it was 2 years ago. So I've got Derek, who's going to join us on the call now, and his topic is going to be how to solve staff shortages. So if you'd like to welcome Derek Stewart to the call, let's give him a nice warm welcome.
Thanks, David. Everyone can see the screen okay. So we're talking about solving staff shortages, whether that's now or next year. Like David said, this is going to be a bigger and bigger challenge, even if you're not already facing it. So what I do, I work at Flat Planet, which is outsourcing to the Philippines. And the big theme of the whole day today and the whole event is both anticipation and adaptation. So I'm going to be talking about that in regards to staffing. So to start with, who am I? What's my background? I grew up in Melbourne. I studied commerce. I thought I was going to be an accountant. So I did that briefly in Melbourne before realizing it wasn't quite what I wanted. And I decided to pack up and move abroad and have a bit of an adventure. So on all of those photos, I'm actually in the Philippines. So grew up in Melbourne, born and raised here, but spent half a decade living and working in the Philippines. So me on one of the great islands in the Philippines, me in the middle in our Manila office at Flat Planet several years ago, and then me on the far right giving a talk at a HR conference. And then I relocated back after a great 4 or 5 years in Manila, living and working there, helping Australian businesses and entrepreneurs to access great talent. I came back and now I'm focused on the client-facing side rather than the operational side, but still in the industry and helping people. So what is Flat Planet? So again, a virtual talent or outsourcing company. We've got 300 staff now across Malaysia, Vietnam and the Philippines is our main hub and where we started. And again, a selection of a group photo of some of our staff there. So what are some of the headlines? If you peel back all of the COVID-related news, and if you still read the business paper and the business press, you likely would have heard a lot of these sort of headlines. And these are quotes from articles that I've seen about a great resignation, employers offering free flights and massive gift cards, skills crunch, staff wanting massive pay increases, and just again across industry, across sector, people struggling to find the people they need. One accounting firm I was speaking to, one of their top staff got poached with a $30,000 signing bonus. So not just a pay increase, but a $30,000 signing bonus. Other recruiters, if any of you are in the recruitment space or are talking to recruiters, hearing about massive amounts of people, they've got a great candidate, they've got the role lined up, but then at the last minute, the company counter offers and keeps them because that's how tightly people are holding on to good staff. And other people that it may be just trying to advertise directly and get staff are finding roles are going unfilled and they're just not able to get who they need. So this big skills crunch is really coming and hitting people. So before we jump into it, I just wanted everyone, again, hopefully webcam's on and people are watching, if you can just put both your hands up in the air if you've ever outsourced to the Philippines before. Keep your hands up if you've ever used staff in the Philippines, maybe directly, indirectly, through a service provider, something like that. Okay, I just want you to keep your hands up if it's been a positive experience, if you've had a good experience with your offshore engagement and it's worked well for you. Okay, excellent. So again, the key problem that many are facing, I'm hearing every day someone talking about staff shortages, not a word we used to hear in all the years I've sort of been in outsourcing. There's always other factors driving, but right now this is the key factor that's driving it, finding, keeping great talent and great people in your business. So it's a bit of a negative sort of start in some ways, talking about these challenges, talking about how hard it is to get and keep people, talking about how competitive the market is. But like all things in life, a lot of it is sort of the mindset you take. And every problem is also an opportunity. So a great little quote here from Winston Churchill about seeing the opportunity in every problem instead of the problem in every opportunity. We all know people, even when things are great, they still nitpick, and other people, no matter what comes to them, they're able to find ways to turn that around and make the most of it. And that's what I would encourage you to do, to see, here's a challenge. There's a shortage of staff, we're struggling, but what's the opportunity? What are new ways that we can, leverage what we've got and what's out there? And as David said, so much has changed recently to actually make the most of it. So the world is flat. So not a flat earth. Some people might have heard the flat earthers on YouTube or on TV or other funny places. And some people ask me, am I a flat earther? I say no. A big difference between a flat planet and a flat earth. So the world is flat was actually the title of a book in 2005 by Thomas Friedman. And it was about outsourcing. It was about globalization. It was about the massive change in factors. And Chris Moriarty, the CEO and founder of Flat Planet, actually named Flat Planet, the company that I work for, after the book, The World is Flat, in 2009 when he started the company. So inspired by that book, and he saw the trends. And again, like a lot of authors at the time, it's not fully sort of understood the trends, but then 10, 15 years on, like now, everyone looks back and it seems obvious. But back then it was quite revolutionary to be talking about that because it was only a small amount of people benefiting. And so what does that mean, you might ask? The world's flat. Okay, I get it. There's a name, it's memorable, it's sort of catchy, but what it means is a level playing field of opportunity, that we're not limited by geography anymore. We don't have to physically travel to places in order to engage with people right now. We're not all in David's office or in a hotel or in an event space. We're on Zoom. We're in different cities, maybe even different countries around Australia. And that means that we can all access this great knowledge, and there's many other things we can access. So why doesn't everyone sort of access it? Technology's there. The hardest thing I would say is habit change. E-commerce has been around for a long time as a similar example. You can buy things online, whether it's groceries, people buy furniture, white goods, mattresses, all sorts of things can be bought online, big ticket, expensive items. So we've got this great communication technology. The hard part is the habit change. Everyone's one click away. All these icons are familiar. You can Zoom call, you can Slack message, you can Google Hangout, you can WhatsApp friends and family. But the hard thing is the habit change. So there's e-commerce, which again, in the recent 2 years had a massive surge, but still a lot of people, the habit of going to the shops, the habit of wanting to touch a piece of clothing before they buy it, the habit of wanting to physically see a fridge before they buy it is still there. And likewise for staffing, the habit of wanting to physically interview someone in person, of wanting someone to sit in your office is still there, even though these great technologies are one click away. One person I was speaking to, they're running a sort of a private equity venture capital fund in Brisbane, and they couldn't get good accountants. And I was talking to them about some of the great work we did for private equity firms and venture capital firms, even large family offices, and the huge amount of accounting back office we did for them, and similar companies, and all the great teams and accounts payable and all these great things we were doing. And the CFO got it, but the CEO, who was a bit older and it had been a bit more traditional, actually decided, rather than looking at offshore staffing and solutions, actually paid someone to relocate from New Zealand to work in his Brisbane office. So he understood the benefit of people outside Brisbane. He couldn't get what he needed in Brisbane, but rather than use these one-click technologies to communicate, actually, recruited and paid for the relocation and physically moved that person who's now in their office. And if they weren't in Brisbane, if they were in Melbourne and Sydney, it might have been a different story. But that goes to show, like I said, even the technology is there, you still have to be willing to use it, because old habits die hard. So encountering that a little bit, I would say it's actually a lot more common than people think. Outsourcing. I go to a lot of business networking events in person and on Zoom, and a lot of people I talk to, about half the room, usually on average, will have outsourced, whether it's to the Philippines, India, Nepal, Sri Lanka, Malaysia, Vietnam. About half the room will have some sort of experience with offshore staff. So it's a lot more common than you think. And especially now, more and more, it started with a lot of call center work, but more and more it's actually back office functions, IT, finance, administration, things like that. And in those sort of roles, you don't actually know. If you engage a company, it's a great experience. You don't know that their bookkeeping, maybe their administration, maybe their database management, maybe their graphic design is actually being done remotely. You wouldn't actually know when you engage with them, because the people aren't in customer-facing roles. So I'd say the reason everyone hasn't done it, like I said, often behavioral change and habits that take time to change, but also that it is actually more common than you would think. So getting a bit more granular, there are 4 specific barriers I want to sort of talk through, which might apply to you or other people in your business. Maybe you're talking to your business partner about it. Maybe you're trying to think through, again, staffing strategies for next year, and really trying to think of what's the mindset. We're talking about a staffing shortage, and which there, is, if you think in terms of the local market. There's no shortage of people in the world. There's great talent all over the world. It's really the only shortage is if your view or your look or your catchment, whether you're recruiting or sourcing, is in your local area within commuting distance of your office, or even within your city, or maybe even within the country. That's where you might see a shortage. But when you open the search to a larger pool, that's when you'll find there's no shortage of great people. It's only sort of, again, a mindset. And that's what the mindset shift I'm helping to sort of hopefully create today. So the first barriers, your employees are all currently perfect. No issues with staffing, utilization. Everyone can just raise up 2 hands if all your employees are perfect. There's no challenges, no issues. Everything's 100%. No sort of challenges. Okay, so not many hands going up. So not many people staff are perfect. And if you're a sole trader, I would ask you the same question again. Are you making the exact amount of money that you want and working the exact amount of hours that you want? Often, again, I would say if you're the only staff member in your own business, that means, again, your staffing isn't perfect. Maybe you're overworked and you need to be able to delegate some work, or maybe you don't have the marketing support to grow your business and you're not overworked, but you're not earning the amount of revenue and business growth that you want. Or again, maybe if your staffing situation is very good, I would say, again, it's not just a skills shortage. Again, the theme, the Great Resignation, is one that's trending around in the business press a lot. So I think a lot of staff, as things open up, or if they haven't already, some people are reevaluating their careers, their lifestyle, their location. So you might have a great team, and I hope you do, but over time, again, there's a lot of people being headhunted, a lot of people changing career paths, leaving, moving companies, seeing what else is out there, hearing about these great bonuses and offers, and thinking, well, I can actually, get a much better offer. Or again, some people just deciding maybe to focus on family or other things in their life. So there's a lot of liquidity in the market of people moving and jumping around. I know early in COVID, I think last year especially, a lot of people were nervous to change because you don't want to leave it, even if it's a sort of a bit of an insecure job. You don't want to leave that because you don't know what's on the other side, and companies were making layoffs. So people are still a bit nervous. But as things open up, people realize that, maybe there's greener pastures for them. Or maybe again, they're not worried about jumping into a new boat, and then the new boat they jump onto doesn't do well in the storm. So the next barrier is people have never thought about it before. So everyone as well, again, if you can just raise 2 hands, if you've never considered outsourcing offshore in your business before ever, it's never come up, you've never thought of it, if you can just raise both hands. Yeah, so some people have, some people haven't. So I find this sort of varies a lot by industry. Anyone who's worked in a large multinational corporate is often familiar. Maybe you worked for a US headquartered company, a UK headquartered company. You're often familiar with having conference calls with colleagues in different locations. Maybe you all flew to one location once or twice a year. Again, maybe you flew around yourself for different clients. And the big end of the corporate world, global multinationals, it's very common to interact with staff. They might have a shared service center in the Philippines or somewhere else. So people who have worked in big multinationals are very familiar with it. Certain industries as well tend to be early adopters, like e-commerce businesses are always sort of very fast. Software development was always very fast on the trend. But 8 to 10 years ago, when I was starting in this industry, if you told me that today I would be providing marketing support for a number of chiropractors, as well as support for medical manufacturers, working with other manufacturing businesses, working with even tradies, sole prop tradies and electrical contractors, again for admin, finance, customer service, working with individual coaches and consultants to expand their marketing, their reach, their administration. I wouldn't have really expected that both sole traders and also industries you wouldn't traditionally think would be interested or open-minded to accessing offshore staff. So the scope of companies has diversified massively outside of finance, telco, insurance, technology firms, to even mid-market and smaller businesses, as well as industries like the trades and construction and property, where you wouldn't really think. Again, there's a big in-person element to a chiropractor or a tradie, but the actual back office requirements, the marketing is more extensive, more online, more advanced, and that's where they're often coming to us for support. So the third barrier, a lot of people are nervous and they don't know where to start. So again, if everyone's can put two hands up if you've thought about it, but you're a bit nervous and you don't know where to begin with outsourcing. You're not sure how it would work in your business. Again, very common. So people, again, maybe you worked at a big company that had offshore staff. Maybe a friend of yours who runs a business has offshore staff and you've thought about it, but or you see someone with a great team and a great operation, you think, yeah, but how did they begin? Like now they've got 10 staff doing all their customer support, sales support. They've got a team of 3 great finance support people. Maybe they've got, again, a whole digital marketing operation. You think, wow, where do you begin? How do you get to that stage? Or they might have talked through some of the challenges in getting set up. And, or some, maybe you're nervous about the security. Some industries are very high security. We work with a cyber security software company. And again, very high security clearances, very tightly provisioned hardware, software, firewall security. And our IT team matches that level of security of our clients, as well as a big private equity company we work with doing some fund accounting. Again, very high security, very confidential information. A lot of people are nervous, but the digital cyber security, physical security, all those sort of controls have improved so much in recent years that we're able to guarantee, essentially the same security as if the computer was inside their own network, and so was the staff. So the final barrier, again, the last time I'll ask everyone to raise their hands, if you've tried outsourcing and it hasn't really lived up to your expectations. If you've tried and it's failed, you can just raise both your hands if that's something you've given a go. Okay, so again, some people, they're open-minded, they got over their initial nerves to start, but then what they found was it didn't live up to their expectations. Some of this could be that they were an early adopter, and like some entrepreneurs and business owners are, they love novelty, they love new things. So maybe a decade ago when the industry was a lot younger and a lot newer, that they gave it a go, but it didn't quite meet their expectations. And because of that, they wrote it off and said, well, never again, and it's not right for me. Maybe they picked the wrong location within the country. Maybe they picked the wrong country. Maybe they picked the wrong partner. Maybe they were, again, cultural, language, time zone, quality control, productivity issues, a whole bunch of reasons. And obviously it's a big market like any sort of industry. So I can't speak to everyone else's experience, but definitely there are some people that rush in. They even, sometimes when we talk to them about the strategy and the ideal circumstances, but then they go off and do something different. And again, not to say it's right or wrong, but just it doesn't always work. And there are a lot of complexities and subtleties that you want to get right. So it works really well, but there are subtleties that are easy to overlook if you sort of rush in. So you might have thought, okay, I fit into one of those categories. I recognize those barriers. I'm still at those stage. What's different now? Why would I sort of consider it now? I thought about it before. Again, it's one of those things, mate. It's just in the back of your mind, or you hear about it. Or like I said, every second business owner is doing it. But I hear about it because this is the industry I'm in. So people often open up to me and chat about their sort of offshore staff. But if you weren't in that industry, you probably wouldn't hear about it. Just like I wouldn't hear about someone's, tax or contract issues because I'm not an accountant or a lawyer. So again, the nature of what I do, it's sort of, I see how common it is when other people might not. So 3 key reasons I want to say on what is different now. What's changed, especially in the last 2 years, specifically with COVID. So there's massive consolidation in the outsourcing, or some people call it the business process outsourcing industry. There used to always be a lot of sort of fly-by-night companies who would set up, get an office, hire a few staff, they'd come, and again, they would sometimes burn the reputation of the industry because they're sort of easy come, easy go. Someone flies to the Philippines and sets up a company. A lot of those players have honestly been wiped out during COVID. So we've been around for 10 plus years, like I said, 300 staff, really stayed steady and even grew during COVID, while a lot of other people were packing up and leaving. Like I said, Chris and his wife, that co-owners of the business, have been in the Philippines for a decade after they moved from Sydney. So they're in it for the long haul. They're very stable. So a lot of those sort of small-time operators have been wiped out. And even at the big end of town, where there's different challenges, there's been massive consolidation. So I would argue the overall quality of the entire industry has lifted massively because a lot of the lower quality providers have been sort of washed out. So a second big fact is there's what's called an overseas Filipino worker, OFWs. So about 10% of the Philippines population was living and working overseas. In Australia, in the US, in the Middle East, and the amount of high-tier talent has actually come back to the Philippines in the same way a lot of Australian expats have repatriated to Australia. Is just massive. We've hired a quantity surveyor for a large property development company in Queensland doing tender responses, who had a decade-plus experience in the Middle East on massive builds, $5 to $25 million projects. We've been able to hire that person to work for an Australian development company, again, providing much higher level service and focus and being able to win, a huge amount of tenders and new business. I was recently interviewing a candidate who spent a decade at Gulf Air in Kuwait in a sales support role, and again, was putting them as a candidate for a business. So these high tier talent, obviously the talent's already in the business and in the country, but ones who used to leave are now sort of coming back. Or another example, not people who have been overseas, but just, recently hired someone who was in a technical support at Salesforce to be the Salesforce administrator at a company. And for that same client, who's a mid-market software business, was able to hire an ex-Amazon data analytics person to do their data and marketing analytics. So getting top talent from, major tech companies like Salesforce and Amazon. So that sort of talent has really changed. And the third and final thing, which I'm sure Tom will talk about, is the technology's improved. Again, everyone's got Zoom, people are familiar with it. Cloud, file, storage, sharing, all those sort of technologies have changed a huge amount. So again, I would ask you to, expand your gaze, expand your mind in terms of talent. If you're not finding who you need, whether it's to support yourself as a small business owner, whether you've got a team, whether it's to, you're losing team members and you need to backfill, whether you want to expand, there's things you wish you could do, but you don't have the budget or the capabilities at the moment to provide those services or support yourself or free up your own time, whether it's an executive assistant, sales support. I would say, expand your mind, even that ourselves. That's why we expanded from not just the Philippines to Malaysia and Vietnam as well, to really expand the catchment of talent we're able to bring into our clients' businesses. So just wrapping up. So again, assuming your staff aren't all perfect or your current setup with yourself and whoever's in your business isn't 100% perfect and you're not 100% happy with it, I'd say there's 2 other alternate pathways you can take. So the first one is, you're ready to have a chat. You're interested, you like what I've said, maybe you've been thinking about it or stewing on it for a while, maybe you've dabbled in it, but you want to see what else is out there. I'd like in the chat box below to type the word call. If you're open-minded to having just a chat, hearing what our clients are doing, hearing what other people are doing in your industry, hearing what type of roles work, what don't, hearing about different engagement models, full-time, part-time, casual, just type the word call in the chat box below. Otherwise, you're curious, maybe you're not sure, it's still a bit new, you think maybe I'm too small, maybe I'm in the wrong industry, maybe I'm too big, maybe it doesn't work, what about this, what about that? You're kind of just curious, but you don't want to have a call because, again, you still want to do a bit more research, which is completely fine. And I just ask you in the chat box below to type the word info, and I'll send you some videos, some articles, some links, and some info just so you can research on your own. And then, like I said, happy for you to leave it in your court and for you to come back to me in the future once you've done a bit of extra research. And that's it from me. Thanks everyone so much for your time. and I'll hand it back over.
Awesome. Thanks very much, Derek. Give him a nice warm round of applause. Got a lot of information in a short period of time. Look, for me, I think it's not either or. It's not whether you outsource or whether you stay in Australia. It's about and. And we live in a world that's globalized. And if anything, this whole event with COVID has caused the world to become a smaller place. So people are using Zoom a lot more. People are interacting a lot more. They're more comfortable working across borders remotely. So it's a question of, can it work for your business? And I think one thing Derek touched on right towards the end is the level of skill that is building in these other countries, where people who used to be quite low level skill are now increasing their skill and are available. It just really opens up an alternative for people. So if anyone's interested in that, that's worth reaching out to Derek. We're going to go into some breakout rooms again just to meet some new people. Same as before, we're going to take one big breath, and on the count of three, we're going to switch into those rooms. 1, 2, 3. We're back. All righty. Guys, been useful so far. We got some good insights. Thumbs up if you've been getting some valuable data out of today. Yeah. We have saved the best to last. So Tom Freer, who's going to be on the call in a split second, is going to be talking about this last piece of this puzzle, which is technology. Now, I noticed one of the comments into the chat box was, some people aren't comfortable using Zoom to do interviews and to work. And I would agree. I think there's things like Zoom fatigue that have been spoken about a lot, and people saying, can't wait till we get back to face-to-face. But here's what I believe the reality is. There's things that are structural change and there's things that are cyclic change in our lives. Cyclic change is like the weather. It changes all the time, but it keeps circling around. And so we always have summer every year. The thing I don't think that will change is people's adaptation to using technology. And for most people, Zoom is not a telecommunication tool. It is a transport replacement. Think about that. It's not a telecommunication tool. It's a transport replacement. It allows you to communicate with people who you normally couldn't communicate with because they're too far away. It allows you to go to meetings like this without having to find parking, without having to get up ridiculously early in the morning for some of you. But it literally gives us convenience. So it's not either or. I think it's an and. And I think understanding how technology plays out over the next year in your planning to transform your professional service businesses is a strategic advantage that most people will leave behind. Because those people hoping that we go back to normal are going to be hoping for a while, right? Those people that embrace and lean into technology and start to work out how to utilize it to reduce the cost of delivery. We used to do these as live events for breakfast. Some of you have been to those. Those events were expensive, right? And so we had costs. Now we run them on Zoom. We have more people attend. We have more people who can access them, and the costs are reduced, which means we get to do more. So you can start to see how these changes become attractive as permanent things. So I'd like to hand over to Tom Freer, who's going to be talking about transforming your business with technology. Let's give Tom a nice warm welcome to the call.
Hello, everyone. Bit of a tough gig to follow. There's some great content there from David, Andrew, and Derek. So I'm just going to share my screen. So hopefully everyone can see that now. Excellent. So thanks again. My name's Tom Freer, and I am the CEO and owner of Wintec. And just a little bit of background on us is I've been in the IT industry for 25 years, working with small and mid-sized businesses across all their technology requirements. I established Wintec in 2010 to be that outsourced IT provider for organisations. We now have a team of 20 across multiple locations. And to Derek's presentation, we actually do embrace offshoring and outsourcing for our back office. And it's working very, very well for us and our clients. And the key thing we do is provide clients with simple, secure and stress-free IT. So as we've seen, there's been a lot of challenges over the last 18 months to 2 years with everything that's happened with COVID. And as David mentioned in his intro, was we have actually seen a significant amount of technology change in a very, very short period of time. We've all been forced to adapt and adopt different technology. And now what we're seeing is a number of challenges starting to really push through as people contemplate coming back and working in that normalized environment. And the problem is traditionally businesses, particularly in professional services, have been built around people in the offices. We built our offices that way. We've encouraged people to come to the office, and our processes and the way people work have been built around being able to talk to someone next to them very, very easily. So as we've now, over the last 18 months, as people have had to work from home, there's been a lot of challenges in organizations around the process flow that happens. So the movement of information, the collaboration with different team members. We don't have water cooler talk anymore, those type of things. So we've got to start, they're going to become and will remain issues unless we start to look at it. Traditionally, from a technology perspective, we've relied on centralized systems and infrastructure, servers in the office, sitting in a cupboard, in a server room, people coming in to be able to access their data and information. And many organizations still do and will continue to rely on legacy applications and systems and processes. So these might be older bits of software that are doing a particular function in the business. They might be older processes that we've done this all the time and we're relying on these systems to do. So we really, if we haven't been thinking about that now, and you've potentially been struggling with some of that, this is the time to really start to address and how we're going to deal with that. And I think the final challenge and problem we're seeing for businesses is really understanding what we see as that new hybrid model. As David said, we are not going back to what we were doing 18 months, 2 years ago. The number of businesses that are downscaling their offices, the people are actually in some instances wanting to have that flexibility around working from home or working in the office. So we have to design our business and our systems and our processes around a hybrid model, which I'll touch on as we go forward. So as I've touched on, some of the business challenges that we're seeing our clients and prospective clients face are those legacy systems. They're still having troubles with unpredictability and costly downtime. And as we've got people working remotely, the impact is significantly more because we can't now just go and do filing in the office or do something else. We are almost 100% reliant on our systems and our technology. Managing the costs of that. So there are different cost structures, there's different costs involved. It's building your systems and your networks and your businesses to support that. So we've got to manage those costs. As I said, we're potentially paying a lot more for downtime. There's a lot more management effort, and that comes across not from even just a technology perspective, but how are we managing staff remotely now? As leadership, as leaders and business leaders, traditionally we've been able to manage in sight. We've got people sitting in front of us, we've got people in a team. Now we've got everybody dispersed everywhere. So how the management effort to deal with that. Risks and exposures are big challenges and continue to be regardless of where our team is working. Cyber risks, ransomware, all these type of things. More and more of these are becoming prevalent to businesses of all sizes. This is not just a security issue for our banks and our utilities. Every business is a target, unfortunately, in different ways. So we all need to be aware of what those risks are. Strategic issues and not being able to leverage the technology we've got. So they're really the key challenges that we're seeing. Now, how to address those? There's a number of different areas, and ultimately it comes down to what we see as three core elements in your business. Your people, you're going to have people, whether it's yourself as a sole trader, whether you've got a team outsourced, whether you've got employees, you're going to have people involved in your business, partners, clients, everything there. So that's a critical element. You're going to have the processes within your business. How do you do what you do? How are you delivering your service? How are you selling your product? How are you marketing? There's all these processes within your business. And then you do have technology in your business today. Now, one of the things we see is that these three elements are typically disconnected. The ultimate goal, as we see in this very simple diagram, is how do we interconnect all these elements of our business? How do we get the people leveraging our processes, the processes leveraging technology, and our people embracing the technology to deliver the outcomes that we want for our business? So this is the ultimate where we want to drive to, and how technology brings all this together, brings your people together, brings your processes together, regardless of where they actually are. So that's the ultimate where we want to strive to. And we call this the user-centric modern workplace. So what we want to define now and into 2022 and onwards is this modern workplace. So we need to be looking at how our staff and our users engage with technology. We need to make sure it's available anywhere, the data, the systems, the applications, where they need to work, where you need them to work, where your clients need them to work. It needs to be secure. And that's ultimately, we need to secure this environment, because security of not only your business from a perspective of availability and operations, but you're storing client data. So how are you protecting that client data? Your clients will be requiring that level of comfort that you are protecting their data. And it's tying it all together with connectivity and mobility and collaboration, and then really focusing on how we're supporting those users, what systems they're running, how we're securing it, and the strategy we're using to bring it all together. So what is the modern workplace? And today, the modern workplace is much more than just technology. Technology does play a very important part in how we deliver this modern workplace, but you need to be thinking about a lot of different areas in the business. And some of those examples are what we touched on, that hybrid work environment. We need to be developing not only workplaces, but systems and processes, and working with our teams so they can work in a manner that not only works for you as the business, works for your client, but works for them as individuals. Having spent, if you're in Melbourne, 280 something days in lockdown, there's going to be a rush to get back to the office, I would imagine, at some point. However, people have become accustomed to the flexibility of working from home, or will become accustomed to that when they get that, I suppose, that release. We see it here in Queensland, whilst we're not in lockdown, but we've got a very high percentage of people who are continuing to work from home. So our businesses need to adapt to that. But we still need to be able to build the spaces that they can come in to collaborate when they need to. And that's that hybrid workplace. It's not everyone going to have their own office anymore. It's looking at the layout of your offices. Do you have collaboration rooms, meeting rooms? How are people working from home? The modern workplace needs to look at a diversified customer engagement channels. And that is really about, it's more than just face-to-face. Yes, it is great to get in front of someone and have lunch or have that meeting and do the presentation, but there's an expectation that we need to be able to deliver similar function remotely. And it'll allow us to do that through the likes of Zoom and Microsoft Teams. I know for our business, it's been, we're a technology business, and we've been talking with our clients for years about that remote working and the collaboration and video conferencing. And only in the last 18 months have our clients started to really adapt and get on board with us having Teams meetings instead of going down or flying to Sydney or whatever it is. So that's the adaptation, and that's continuing. And we're seeing that as a much more effective means now of being able to deliver more value to our clients through different channels. Yes, we still have our face-to-faces where we can, but we're able to have more consistent contact points using technology in that space, in that hybrid place. We need to be able to leverage legacy technology. That's really important, because not every business has the latest software, has the latest application. Lots of businesses still rely on those systems they've been using 4, 5, 10 years ago, we see, and they don't traditionally work in that cloud environment that we all hear about. We need to ensure that whilst we've got people working remotely, we're enforcing compliance and maintaining efficiency. We're able to onboard people contactlessly. So our staff, we might not actually physically handshake staff as they come on board. And that's happened over the last 18 months, 2 years. It happens in that outsourcing environment when we're using offshore talent or people in different offices. As the CEO, I haven't shaken hands with every one of my team, simply because we haven't been able to connect, but we have contactless onboarding processes where we can maintain that level of engagement. And where we're starting to see a lot of this work now move to is improving the processes within the business, automation, workflow optimization. So what we've seen is organizations really taking more notice of the processes that they do in their business, making sure they're refined so they work. And then how do we start to automate that, make it electronic, move data seamlessly throughout, so I don't actually have to have a piece of paper sitting on my desk that I need to sign before I can purchase that bit of equipment or get that next step in the process done. So it's about how do we make that electronic? How do we optimize that So it can be approved regardless of where people are sitting. And the final element, which is really underpinning to all of this, is the security component. So the true modern workplace and the times that we're living in now, and we see it all the time in the news and what's reported, is the sheer volume of cyber instances. And when we're designing and looking at how we build our businesses and how we transform our businesses over the next 3, 6, 12, 18 months, we have to be building them and designing them with security in mind. And this is about technology security. This is about what systems are we using to make sure that our team are protected. But more so, it's really about that last line of defense, which is your people, your team. It's about building awareness throughout your people, making sure they're aware of what the risks are to the business, because ultimately we can put in as much technology as you want and spend as much money as you can afford to secure your business. But if we haven't educated your team and they're not aware of what's going on, they could still click on that link, and the next thing you know, you've transferred money to Nigeria or something like that to your rich uncle over there. So you've got to be really, really focused on not just the technology and the process around that security element, but the people and what are your team doing around that. So that's really how we define the modern workplace now. And as you can see, yes, it is underpinned all by technology, but you've got to be thinking about a lot of different aspects within that to make sure that you get the most value out of it. And as we go through, I mean, some of the key outcomes that you will be focusing on as you go through developing this and looking at the technology and how it's supported and how it's managed and how it's being used. It's about ensuring that there's flexibility there, ensuring that as a business, it's reliable and that it delivers the outcomes that your users need. It's on all the time. It's on when they need it. We don't work in 8 to 5 offices anymore. Your team will work when they feel they need to work. Your clients will work when they feel they need to work. So how are you delivering systems and information to them? So we need to have availability. We need to have flexibility. We need to have reliability in the systems. You and your team need to be confident that any investment that you're making in technology is actually driving real value through the business. So it's not about implementing technology for technology's sake. It's not about upgrading to the latest version of Windows because Windows 11 looks really cool. It's about what value are we going to get when we implement that technology. It's thinking about, okay, yes, there are going to be times where we have to do that. And why are we doing that? And what are we looking at? And what value are we looking to get on the end of that? Is it improving security? Is it improving the engagement of our staff? Is it improving their output and their optimization? So we need to be thinking about any of the changes that we're making, how we're delivering those benefits. And that ties into being able to leverage technology to improve that outcome. Lots and lots of businesses have implemented technology and implemented platforms, but are only using a small percentage of that platform. It's really understanding what are you currently spending on your technology? What systems are you currently using? Are you actually using them to their full capability? Or can you start to introduce new features of that? And I look at the Microsoft Office 365 suite as an example. And whilst I don't get too technical in these, I think it's good to understand that you'll be paying for a license and you might just be using email on that. But are you using all the other features that come within that license set? And that's looking across the board. Are you duplicating spend? Are you using a system that you're paying money for over here that you've actually got in another subscription that you just might not know about or might not be using? So as a business and as you go through, you want to start to leverage that technology and make sure you are getting the best value from all the spend that you're making, because you will be spending on technology. So you need to make sure you're getting the most out of it. We need to ensure that not only our business data, so that's our own internal data, but any client data that we're storing is secure and protected. And that's almost a priority one for a lot of organizations that we work with in professional services space. And truly aligning IT to the business needs. And that's a very cliche comment, as I say, but now we're at a point where when you implement technology, it should actually drive an outcome in your business. And it should almost be a one-to-one alignment in that I'm going to implement this platform and here's the key outcomes that I'm going to get for that implementation. So we're actually aligning the IT with our system, with our business process and what we want to achieve as a business. Are we looking to scale? Are we looking to leverage outsourcing? Are we looking to make our client engagement more effective? How do we get technology to actually deliver outcomes for those specific business needs that you're looking to address? So we've covered a lot there, and I think it's really, look, where do you start? How do you kick this off in your business? How do I actually go about making my business a modern workplace? And I think it's looking at understanding the common frustrations that your team and your business has. So what's the noise in your business today? Is it we just can't get enough output? Is it our team aren't efficient enough? Is it our clients can't get access to what we need? So really understand what those common frustrations are. Then you want to get a really good platform in place, making sure that your platforms are stable, that you're secure, and you're building frameworks around what's going on. How are we onboarding staff? How are we making sure that they're secure? How are we making sure that our data's secure? It's look at the systems that you have in place, number 3, and leveraging them. So you've all made investment in technology today. Every one of us has made an investment in some sort of technology, whether it's an email platform, Zoom, Teams, whatever it is. Are you using it to its fullest capability? Or are you duplicating spend? You've got to look at where you're using those systems. What can you use more of without necessarily buying more licenses or spending more money? It just might be an element of time or engagement to use what you're already paying for more effectively. You need to sit back and you need to look at that you're maintaining those compliance standards. Again, in that professional services space, accounting, financial, legal, even surveillance and engineers, there's elements of compliance that you need to have in place. Now, your technology should allow you to enforce that compliance and control that in compliance. So you need to make sure that not only are you compliant when you're all sitting in the office and you've got your filing cabinets full of files. We don't have that now. We've got remote teams. We've got people accessing it, data everywhere. How are they storing that data? How is it being secured? Is it being maintained? Is it being backed up? All those type of things. So ensuring that compliance. And the final thing of where to start is really going through and documenting those key processes within your business and identifying where technology could potentially help. So this is about looking about what are you doing today to do what you do? What's the process within your business? Have you got that clearly defined? And you might have good operating procedures in place so your staff can do it. Or is it all in your head about how things need to happen? What we find and what we recommend with our clients as we talk to them is start looking at those 2 or 3 key processes in your business, either the ones that do the most in your business or where you're doing it, or the ones that you know are frustrating. So take those top 2 or 3 and document them and put them in a flow chart. What happens? What is the process that you go through to make this thing happen? Document that, because I can almost guarantee that there will be areas in that process that, 1, you'll refine your manual process so it becomes more effective anyway. But 2, you will find areas where you will already have technology that you could leverage to make that more efficient, to automate that process, to make that electronic, and really start to drive productivity and value through the business. So they're sort of the 5 areas that I would recommend everyone start to look at to start modernizing their business and looking at what you can do to leverage the technology to be able to do these things in 2022 that we all know and hope are coming. As David said, there's a big flood coming as people sort of open up and get back into doing things. And I think as businesses, we need to be ready to adapt to that. We need to be able to be ready to deliver on what's going on. And technology and the modern workplace plays a really core and a really key component to being able to get that and make that happen within your business. So thank you for that. And hopefully that's given you a little bit of insight around the technology. Look, if you're interested, if you just type ebook into there, we've got our ebook coming out in the next couple of weeks. It's just getting finalized, and it really goes through these top IT challenges and some of the key elements of how to modernize your workplace. Otherwise, feel free to reach out to me on email or LinkedIn, or jump on the website, and you can follow our podcast, The Modern Workplace Hacks, to get a little bit more insight on what you can do with technology in your business. So thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Tom. Let's give Tom a nice round of applause. Brilliant presentation. Did a good job of keeping up with the others. A bit of a tough gig. Some great presentations today, some really interesting insights. And the rooms I've been in, I've heard some interesting thought process around, some of the gems that these guys have shared. A couple of things, right? I suppose just to sort of wrap all this together, because as we come to the end, we come to these kind of events to learn stuff. And it's one thing to sit there through all of this and go, yeah, that was awesome. But if you don't actually action anything out of this event, you just wasted 2 hours of your life. So what I want you to do right now is in your notes, what are the 3 action items? What are the 3 things you're going to do as a result of what you learned this morning? Top 3 things you're going to do as a result of what you learned this morning. Never leave the scene of a presentation without an action list. One of my philosophies, right? Because if you don't do anything different, the definition of insanity is do the same thing, expect a different result. Learning this information going, that was great, and not doing anything with it, or I'll look at it later, doesn't work, right? What you actually need to do is take action on this. So please, top 3 things that you want to do as a result of this. And what I'd like you to do is into the chat box, what is the highest priority action item that you've got on your list right now? Let's see what people have got as takeaways. Yes, I'm going to be asking my team if we need an office anymore. It's a top question, right? Email Tom for a meeting, 100%. It's really about thinking differently, right? Cybersecurity, do something about it. So exactly what it is, what's the action item on that? So thanks, Lisa. And let's get a few more people, put some of their action items into there, and I'll just start wrapping up on where we are right now. We've talked about growth hacks. We've talked about ways to grow your business by being more effective through your marketing. We've talked about growth hacks of employing people offshore and potentially reducing the cost or actually finding high caliber people in other countries. We've talked about tech and how it's definitely a non-negotiable moving forward. It's not something that is temporary, it's permanent. And the whole idea of all this is to get you to the top of this chart, which is leveraging yourself out of your business, doing more work on your business than in your business, being available for when there's changes in the economy so that you can strategize your business moving forward. And there's a couple of quotes I'd like to leave you with. The first one is one of my favorite quotes of all time. Jim Rohn, famous business philosopher. If you haven't heard him, Google him. He's not around anymore, but he's classic. And one of my favorite comments was this: never wish life were easier, wish you were better. And I think one of my big tenets and one of the reasons I do what I do is that I believe personal development is the secret to your success. I believe learning how to become a better human being will improve your income 100%, the quality of your life, the quality of your relationships. So stop worrying about COVID and stop worrying about bushfires. Start thinking about what I can control, which is me, and what can I do to improve myself so that all of these events are neither good nor bad, they're just events. Okay, so never wish life were easier, wish you were better. And my other favorite philosopher of all times, Bruce Lee, a bit quirky, but he said, knowing is not enough, right? We must apply. And literally sitting here and learning from these guys and saying I learned some really good stuff does not change a thing, right? It's when you apply this information into your world, into your business, that things will start to shift for you. And this is why I've asked people to put their action items into the chat box. We've got a few people, right? SEO review and update, website updates, Joe Buckler looking at websites to review the potential new client engagement, 100%. Websites have changed in the past 3 years. And if your website is 3 years old, it's out of date. No two ways about it. The way people are absorbing information now is different to what they were 3 years ago. And so if you haven't refined, then chances are you're behind. Set up tenanted for, I can't actually read that, domains for teams, and clarify what we stand for. Really cool. What is the stunning outcome? Love that, Mel. Website update, review, quick tech stack, tech stock, 100%. I mean, if you see some good ideas in the chat box, by the way, stealing them is not stealing them, it's market research. Take them, stick them on your list, and make sure you get some action items out of today. One last thing from me. We're going to open up to questions if there are any. We run an event called the Business Adaptation Plan Roundtable. Now, it used to be literally around a table. It is now around a Zoom call. And we run these probably once a month, and they're small, right? We don't do these as big, we do them as small. And the whole idea is that I run this as a coaching session. And we look at your business model where it stands right now, and we try and work out where the gaps are so we can identify what you should be focused on. Normally we charge $100, but if anyone on this call is interested in attending next Thursday, 21st, which is not tomorrow, but the following week, it's run between 9 a.m. and 11 a.m. It's 2 hours. First thing is you need to be available if you want to come. The second thing is there's no charge if you're interested in coming as a result of today. So if you're interested in coming to the business adaptation plan, just type the word adaptation into the chat box and we can organise a comp ticket for you if you're interested. It's not for everyone. We only run them as small groups. So if anyone's interested in coming into the adaptation plan, just into the chat box, I'd love to catch up with you, learn a bit more about your business model right now and work out where the gaps are so we can help you with that as well. While you're doing that and while you're thinking, any questions? Any comments? Let's get all the presenters up on the screen. So if anyone's got any questions or comments, this is your opportunity to ask them directly for the presenters. Mark, do you have a question? Or are you just saying yes to the adaptation plan? I'm not sure.
Yeah, no, I do. I just wanted to ask Tom a question.
Yeah.
With regards to Microsoft versus Google. I don't know.
It's a big question, that one.
Because I've just implemented our whole business is in the cloud now with Google Workspace. I'm really happy with it, but you never even mentioned it. So
no, look, I don't mention it because I don't know it. Look, it really comes down to personal choice in a lot of those scenarios. What we typically see is if people are used to using Outlook, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, the Microsoft stack. So using the Microsoft cloud is a very natural transition for them. Personally, I work with the Microsoft stack because it is more than just your productivity. It covers all your security, collaboration, document management. It can automation and workflow and things like that. So it's a much bigger platform for businesses as you scale. And look, depends on staff numbers and where you're at. Look, Google will work, and we see it work really well for smaller teams. But as you start to expand and grow, we do see a lot more benefits in that Microsoft space.
Yeah. I think the answer was how long's a piece of string? And Mark, you probably need to talk to Tom after this call. Because I felt like the Ford Holden conversation was coming up there for a minute.
Yep, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, so different strokes for different folks, but that's a great question. Alex has got her hand up. I'm not sure if that's a question or...
Yes, that's a question to Andrew. HubSpot and ActiveCampaign are CRM systems that also can send an emails. Whereas MailChimp is only mailing system. Is it better, especially for small business, to have CRM and the mailing separately, or it's much better to incorporate into one system and use CRM for all?
The answer to that, Alex, is are you going to use your CRM? Like, do you use it for a purpose, or is it really just to store data and things like that?
I actually now preparing to trial the CRM system been offered to me, and that would be used for everything in terms of client handling. So the leads handling, the existing clients handling, the follow-ups. It could do all the mails. It could actually transfer from MailChimp all the templates and everything. And so I'm just wondering, would it be good fit, or you from your experience can say that's better to keep it separate up until it's on a certain level?
I think I'm in favor of making it simple. So if you have a system that does what you need it to do in a simple way, you can send out emails and they have the CRM, that's going to make your life easier instead of having to switch to different channels. So if you can, I know HubSpot and you're using ActiveCampaign, there are others, but that's probably a good solution just to see how it works. So yeah.
All right. Okay. Thanks. Because I was thinking of that, but
yeah.
There's your advice.
You answered the question, Alex. I just asked the question to get you there.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Great question. Marianne has a question.
Yeah, I've actually got two, if I may. One for Tom. With Microsoft 360, we use that, but you just made a very good point. I think we're just using it for email and Teams. What would you say the top kind of uses that people aren't using would be?
Yep. So as you say, email is the one that everyone's using. Microsoft Teams, but using it more for than just the instant messaging and video conferencing. So actually using it as a collaboration space with setting up your teams and structuring your business. I think the other big one that's a lot of times overlooked is there's a product in there called SharePoint. which is essentially your file server replacement platform and an intranet built into one. So it allows for that single storage of company data. And then the final one that everyone overlooks is Microsoft OneNote. That is my favorite app in the whole suite.
Thank you. I'll check them out.
Awesome.
Just one other for Derek. Just with the like, if you were to engage a team or a person, I'm just wondering, is it a specific person that gets assigned to your business, or is there like teams of people that, you know, say for example, document preparation? How does that work?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we actually have both models. So the core of what we do is custom recruited full-time ongoing people. So someone who's dedicated to you. But for some people, they're not at the size or scale where they have the volume of work for full-time ongoing. So for those ones, we have a separate team of about 10 people who do sort of pay by the hour marketing and admin support. And there's a management structure and a communication structure in place. You sort of hand the work to the account manager, and then the work gets done and sort of comes back to you. So if it's, again, 5 hours a week, 10 hours a month, small ad hoc documents, it would be that model. But if you had enough volume of admin or other document prep or design or stuff, we would sort of hire a full-time person for you, and then they would be dedicated and implemented directly into all your systems and your business.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Great questions. So guys, been an awesome session. I think we've got a lot of value out of today for those who've hung around right through. Reach out to these guys if you need help in any of these three areas. If you need help in the marketing space, Andrew's your guy, Derek for outsourcing, and obviously Tom with the tech side of things. And if you just need to know what's next, you can just reach out to Outcomes to our business. We help people grow. So I really appreciate your time today. Hope you got some great value. Make sure you do take some action as a result of today, and that's my main thing. And enjoy the rest of your day, guys. So awesome.
Thank you. Fantastic. Thanks very much.
Cheers, guys.
Thanks, everyone.